In my 5th year in business, I recruited myself a coach to start working on my identity levels. And I guess the reason that this is such an important reflection for me was that I realised I had some faulty paradigms. And what's a paradigm? A paradigm is basically what we hold our belief system to. And so when we're shifting paradigms or we're changing our thinking, it can create massive change very, very quickly. And I believe when I sit with a client that if I can identify any limiting beliefs and we can shift a belief very, very quickly, that person will free up and get fast results. And so it's in my best interest to sit down and really align with a client and find out what they believe to be true. And so when my coach Salima did this for me, she sat down and was finding out, where I was frustrated in life. A lot of my frustrations were coming from my personal life. And so although business was looking fantastic at that time, we had 9 coaches that were working with us. We had about 65 clients at the time. And so business wasn't really creating a lot of pressure, but my personal goals had started to frustrate me that they weren't coming along fast enough. And so when I heard about this lady, I was really excited to be able to meet with her. And, to be honest, when I work with a new coach, I have high expectation. And my expectations weren't upset at this experience, because what she started to realise and teach me was, what was my purpose, or where was I headed with my agenda? And I'd never thought about it before. We had already created for ourselves an incredible lifestyle. Kent was out of the workforce at that point. We were looking to start a family. Everything was seeming to be on track, and yet what track was I on? And one of the things that she identified with me was that I was still experiencing quite a lot of psychological stress. Meaning I was thinking about things and overthinking them and concerned with if I was doing things the right way or if there was a better way that I could do things. And so the number one lesson that I really understood was this definition of wisdom. And if you think of the wisest person that you know, are they young or are they older? And why is it that older people tend to have more wisdom? And her definition of wisdom was no psychological stress. And so if you go to somebody who's been around a bit longer than you and you tell them what your biggest stress is, have you ever had somebody just laugh at you and say, wow, if that's your only problem, then life's going pretty great? And I know Kent and I experienced that a lot with our mentors. We would be frustrated, locking horns in terms of what we wanted to achieve financially and the frustrations we were having, and they would say, honestly, you two, you have nothing to complain about. Go home and just put your heads down and do what you need to do. There are no problems here. And yet we didn't understand what that meant until we had experienced more. And so for you, I want you to think about where your biggest psychological stress is coming from. In what area of your life are you the most frustrated? And we all have frustrations in certain areas of life, so you might have a couple of areas, and that's fine too. And I guess the paradigm shift that I experienced at this point was recognizing that in my life, I believed there were T intersections, or key points where I was poised, deciding if I should go right or should I go left. Thinking that actually if I turned left and that was the correct path, I'd be happy. And if I turned right, it would lead me down a path and I'd be unhappy. And that's pretty much what the lesson was. So where does that put all the pressure? The pressure's on the decision. Now, when she explained this to me, I said, yeah, that's absolutely what I believe. If I could just find a course, or I could find a teacher, or if I could find a process that tells me what the right thing to do is, just give me the answer, accountant. Just give me the answer, franchisor. Just give me the answer that you're looking for, and I could follow that, then I would achieve what I wanted to achieve. But in actual fact, that paradigm is completely faulty. And about 80% of the people that I coach, when I teach them this, recognise that they too have this faulty paradigm. And that's why it's probably the second best reflection when I've gone back over my 10 years of coaching of what has helped and fast-tracked people to success. So I want you to think about that life is simply a journey. Okay, and in this journey we have troughs and we have peak experiences. And in order to join a peak experience to a trough, we see this roller coaster effect. We go up and we go down and we go up and we go down, and that is the process of life. Okay, and some days we're going to be experiencing the dizzy highs of excitement, and I know certainly it's been a long time since I set myself some really strong financial goals that I was accountable for. And last month I had set myself a very, very public goal, and public meaning that I told my 6-year-old and I told my 4-year-old, and we have set our family a goal. And it's to go to Dreamworld. And so I had my thermometer on the fridge, which is what we teach all of our clients to keep track of. And I can tell you that in the beginning of the month, I was just rocketing towards this goal and feeling so confident and fantastic that I was back in my flame, as I would call it, what I love to be doing. And yet, in that last 48 hours, things didn't look like they were going to pan out. And I remember that feeling really, really clearly of just the other day, of believing I'd let the team down, recognising that everything hinged upon my result. And if I couldn't get that result, or I hadn't planned properly, or I hadn't have achieved that, then that was a really big turning point for me. And once again, I could feel myself putting myself into this limiting thinking. If I achieve my goal, I'll be happy. If I don't achieve it, I'll be sad. And it wasn't until I caught myself in that moment that I thought, you know what, I've got to switch this over, because people are going to pick that up, they're going to feel it. And how can I talk to myself about myself and what I've set myself for on this journey? What am I actually wanting to instill in my kids? And that was the turning point for me. As soon as I realised that the only thing that was important was that I could show them that we don't give up until midnight. Okay, I can't control external resources. I can't necessarily guarantee the results that I'm going to get, but I can do my numbers. I can have a great attitude in what I'm doing, and I can believe that I am going to teach them either way. Whether it's a trough experience that night or whether it's a peak experience that night, either way, I'm going to show up being the best me that I can be, as congruent as I can be. And for an hour and 10 minutes, I got rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection. I'd done a short list of 9 possibilities of how my target could come off. And to be honest, I was really confident when I first set out. I thought this is going to be in the bag. And when I got to the last one and got the last rejection on that list, I realised something, that I needed some help. I was experiencing frustration, and I realised that I could either sit in that space or I could put my hand out and ask for help. And that's the biggest reflection. It's not that you have no psychological stress and you just experience it. It's that, what are you moving towards? What goals are you setting yourself so that you continually feel that you're growing and expanding? I rang a series of 3 coaches that to me I've always had on a pedestal. They've always got great results for me. And you know, out of those 3 people that I called, there was one person that really, really, really helped me. Got me really, really clear and was able to focus me on what I needed to do and get me back into a really healthy space. That was the lesson of the day. It was that, you know, did it matter that I achieved my result? It did matter, because the reason I achieved it was that I made it bigger than myself. Okay, so the first thing that I'd ask and reflect upon now is, you know, in your life, when you're creating wisdom, are you just keeping this to yourself, or are you focused on being able to duplicate that feeling? Okay, and having no psychological stress around a process is very, very empowering. All right, so over time, what will happen is those peaks become a little less heightened, because you realise, okay, this is just an experience. I've experienced this before. I'm going to experience this again. Breathe it in, relax. It's wonderful. All right, but not so much into ego that you think you're better than anybody else or that this is fantastic. And I've coached a lot of people that can move into ego very, very quickly when they're achieving great results. And then they crash bottom, and when they're in a pit, then they absolutely judge themselves, feel fake, remorseful. That too is their ego working. And so our whole purpose here as a community is to move you out of ego, to start to recognise that an empowered individual realises that there are processes, there are systems, there are, ways in which we can move ahead in a healthy space, and life is a journey. And so I guess that's all I really wanted you to reflect on right now is, are you feeling that you're running towards a destination and you're experiencing destination disease? Are you putting too much pressure in the present moment, in that if I don't do this, I'm wrong, or if I do this, it's going to mean everything? Because once you're putting too much pressure, that's a signal that it's a faulty paradigm as well. Alternatively, if you have no psychological stress in any areas of your life, then you need to share your wisdom openly and with as many people as possible, because it's my belief that the more that we serve others, the greater that we are of service for ourselves. So I hope that's helped gain some more clarity, and you have a wonderful day.